The Two Sisters. In the heart of the lush and vibrant village of Amawi, two sisters lived with their parents in a cozy hut surrounded by towering palm trees and golden fields. The younger sister, Zina, was a bright light in the community. Her warm smile, kind heart, and sharp mind made her beloved by all. From helping the elders with their chores to teaching the younger children how to read, Zina had a way of bringing joy wherever she went. Her beauty was also admired, a radiant glow in her dark skin and eyes that sparkled like the stars above Amawi. Her elder sister, Tari, was strikingly beautiful too, with features that could command attention. But where Zina was humble and selfless, Tari was ambitious and calculating. She desired more attention, more admiration, and more praise. Yet no matter how hard Tari tried, she couldn't outshine Zina. This disparity planted a seed of jealousy in Tari's heart, a seed that grew thornier with each passing day. The sisters lived with their parents, Mafoya and Ikon, who were respected figures in Amawi. Ikon was a skilled craftsman, known for carving intricate masks used in festivals, while Mafoya was a healer, mixing herbs and remedies for the villagers. Though both parents loved their daughters deeply, it was no secret that Zina was the favorite. Her grace, intelligence, and willingness to help others endeared her to everyone, including her own family. Tari, on the other hand, was often reprimanded for her selfishness. "Why can't you be more like your sister, Zina?" was a phrase she had heard one too many times. Each time, it felt like a dagger to her pride. One fateful day, the village elders made an announcement that would change everything. The sacred festival of blessings, an event held once every 10 years, was approaching. It was the highest honor for a villager to be chosen as the festival's guardian, a role that required the person to represent the village in a series of rituals to secure blessings for the land. The guardian was always someone of pure heart and strong character. The entire village gathered in the central square as the elders prepared to announce the chosen one. Tari stood confidently among the crowd, her heart pounding with anticipation. She had convinced herself that this was her moment. But when the elder raised his staff and called out the name, it was not hers. "Zina, the daughter of Ikon and Mafoya, shall be our guardian for the festival of blessings." The crowd erupted in cheers. Zina stepped forward, stunned but smiling, as the villagers showered her with flowers and praises. Tari stood frozen in place, her fist clenched, her nails digging into her palms. She tried to smile, but her lips wouldn't move. Rage bubbled within her like a volcano on the verge of eruption. From that day on, Tari could barely look at her sister without feeling a pound of hatred. Why was Zina always the one to receive love, recognition, and honor? Was she not just as deserving? The bitterness in her heart grew until it consumed her every thought. One moonlit night, as the village slept under a canopy of stars, Tari slipped out of the hut and ventured deep into the forest. She walked past the whispering trees and rustling leaves, guided by a faint glow in the distance. There, at the edge of the woods, stood the hut of the outcast sorceress, Naija. Naija was feared by the villagers for her strange powers and her connection to the spirits. She lived alone, her hut surrounded by eerie totems carved from bone and wood. As Tari approached, the sorceress stepped out, her piercing eyes glinting in the moonlight. "I know why you've come," Naija said in a voice that seemed to echo through the trees. Tari hesitated, her heart racing. "I need your help," she finally said, her voice trembling but determined. "I want you to give me a way to stop my sister. She cannot have everything while I have nothing." Naija's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Be careful what you wish for, child. Such desires often come at a cost." Tari's eyes burned with resolve. "I don't care about the cost. Just tell me what I must do." Cliffhanger, Naija opened the door to her hut, her voice low and ominous. "Come inside, and I will show you the path you seek. The sorceress's potion." Inside Nigel's eerie hut, the air was thick with the scent of burning herbs and dried flowers. Strange trinkets hung from the ceiling, and the walls were lined with jars filled with unidentifiable substances, some glowing faintly in the dim light. Tari's heart raced as she stood before the sorceress, who stirred a bubbling cauldron with deliberate movements. Nigel fixed her sharp eyes on Tari, her expression unreadable. "You come seeking darkness," she said, her voice as smooth and cold as a river at night. "Do you understand what it means to tamper with life, to bend fate to your will?" Tari hesitated for a moment but clenched her fist, pushing her fear aside. "I understand. Zina has taken everything from me, our parents' love, the villagers' admiration, and now this sacred honor. I cannot stand by and let her outshine me again." The sorceress tilted her head, observing Tari like a hawk sizing up its prey. "You speak of jealousy, child. But jealousy is a double-edged blade. Are you ready to face the consequences of wielding it?" "I am ready," Tari replied, her voice steady. "Tell me what I must do." Nigel chuckled softly, a sound that sent shivers down Tari's spine. She reached for a small vial filled with a dark, swirling liquid. The potion seemed alive, writhing and pulsing as if it had a heartbeat of its own. "This," Nigel said, holding the vial up to the flickering light of a nearby candle, "is a cursed potion. Once consumed, it would drain the life force of its victim, leaving them weak and helpless. Over time, their spirit will wither, and they will no longer be able to fulfill their purpose." Tari's eyes widened as she stared at the vial. It seemed to hum with power, and for a brief moment, doubt flickered in her heart. But the image of Zina basking in the villagers' praise pushed the doubt aside. She nodded. "How do I use it?" The sorceress smiled, revealing teeth that looked far too sharp. "Mix it into food or drink. It must be consumed willingly, without suspicion. Once the potion enters their body, it cannot be undone unless the spell is broken by the one who cast it." Nigel leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But remember, child, magic is not kind. What you take from another may one day be taken from you." Tari swallowed hard, but her resolve remained firm. "I'll take my chances." Nigel handed over the vial, her fingers lingering on Tari's hand for a moment. "Then go, and let the spirits decide your fate." The next morning, Tari returned to the family hut, the vial hidden securely in her sash. Zina was sitting outside, humming softly as she helped Mafoya grind herbs for the festival. Her face glowed with happiness, and the sight of it filled Tari with renewed bitterness. That evening, Tari prepared a dish she knew Zina loved, spicy yam porridge. As she cooked, she added the cursed potion, stirring it into the porridge until it was completely dissolved. The liquid disappeared without a trace, leaving no sign of the sinister plan hidden within. Carrying the steaming bowl to Zina, Tari forced a warm smile. "Sister, I wanted to apologize for how I've been acting lately. I know I've been distant, and I want to make it up to you." Zina looked up, surprised but touched by her sister's words. "Oh, Tari, you don't need to apologize. I know things have been difficult for you, but I've always loved you." Tari's smile wavered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "Please, eat. I made your favorite." Zina took the bowl, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, sister. This means so much to me." As Zina ate, Tari watched her intently, her heart pounding. Each bite felt like a step closer to her victory. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of control, a belief that she was finally getting what she deserved. But her triumph was short-lived. That night, Zina began to feel unwell. It started with a faint dizziness that quickly escalated into sharp pains in her chest and an overwhelming fatigue. She struggled to stand, her legs trembling beneath her. "Mother, I don't feel well," Zina said weakly as she clutched the edge of the table for support. Mafoya rushed to her side, her face etched with concern. "Zina, what's wrong?" "I don't know," Zina whispered, her voice barely audible. "I feel so tired." Ikon entered the room, alarmed by the commotion. He helped Mafoya carry Zina to her bed, but her condition worsened with each passing moment. Her skin grew pale, and her once bright eyes dulled. The news of Zina's sudden illness spread quickly through the village, and the elders gathered at the family's hut to offer their prayers. The villagers, who adored Zina, were devastated by her condition. Whispers of curses and bad omens filled the air. In the corner of the hut, Tari watched the scene unfold, her heart pounding. She hadn't expected the potion to work so quickly, and the sight of her sister's suffering stirred an unfamiliar unease within her. For the first time, she wondered if she had gone too far. Cliffhanger: as the night deepened, Zina's condition grew worse, and the village shaman was called to investigate. Tari's guilt and fear began to clash, but she knew she couldn't turn back now. She clenched her fist, silently hoping no one would uncover her dark secret. Zina's decline. The days after Zina fell ill were a nightmare for the village of Amawi. The vibrant young woman who had once been the pride of the community now lay in her bed, frail and unrecognizable. Her energy had drained away as if the life force that once lit up her eyes had been snuffed out. She could barely lift her head, let alone speak, and every step she tried to take left her trembling and breathless. Mafoya stayed by her daughter's side, her hands constantly tending to Zina's feverish forehead, while Ikon paced outside the hut, wringing his hands in despair. The villagers came every morning to inquire about Zina's condition, their faces etched with worry. Whispers began to ripple through Amawi: this was no ordinary sickness. Something sinister was at play. The sacred festival of blessings, just days away, hung over everyone like a dark cloud. Without Zina, the rituals could not proceed. The elders convened in secret meetings, their voices low but tense, as they debated how to move forward. Who would replace Zina? Could the festival be delayed? None of these questions had easy answers. Tari, meanwhile, played her role flawlessly. Every morning, she sat by Zina's bed, holding her hand and whispering soft words of comfort. "You'll get better soon," she would say, her voice trembling with false emotion. But deep down, her heart swelled with satisfaction. The potion had worked perfectly, and Zina's fall from grace had been swift. In public, Tari wore a mask of concern, weeping alongside the villagers and insisting she would do anything to help her sister recover. But when she was alone, she allowed herself to smile. She no longer had to live in Zina's shadow. With her sister too weak to participate in the festival, the village might finally recognize Tari for her worth. She imagined herself stepping into Zina's role, basking in the admiration that had always eluded her. Yet, there was a growing unease Tari couldn't ignore. Each time she saw her sister's pale face or heard her shallow breathing, a sliver of guilt wormed its way into her heart. She shoved the feeling aside, reminding herself of all the years she had suffered in silence. "This is justice," she told herself. "This is what I deserve." Mafoya and Ikon, desperate to save their daughter, sought out every healer in Amawi and the surrounding villages. They carried Zina from one hut to another, placing their hopes in herbalists, midwives, and even traveling mystics. But no one could explain her condition. Remedies were mixed, prayers were chanted, and rituals were performed, yet Zina's health continued to decline. One evening, as Mafoya wept beside Zina's bed, the village shaman, Keo, arrived. Keo was an elderly man with deep wrinkles and a presence that commanded respect. He carried a staff adorned with feathers and beads, symbols of his connection to the spirits. After examining Zina, Keo's expression grew grave. He turned to Mafoya and Ikon, his voice low. "This is not a natural sickness. Your daughter has been cursed." The words hit the parents like a thunderclap. Mafoya clutched Ikon's arm, her eyes wide with fear. Cursed. But who would do such a thing to our Zina? Keo shook his head. The source of the curse is unclear, but it is powerful. To break it, you must find the one who cast it, or someone with greater magic than the caster. There is only one person I know who may have the knowledge to help. Ikon's brow furrowed. Who? Niger, the outcast sorceress, Keo replied. She is dangerous, but she may hold the key to saving Zina. Mafoye gasped. Niger. But she was banished for meddling with forbidden magic. True, Keo said, but desperate times call for desperate measures. If you wish to save your daughter, you must seek her out. The shaman's words spread like wildfire through the village. Many were horrified at the thought of approaching Niger, but others agreed it might be the only way to save Zina and ensure the festival of blessings could proceed. Mafoya and Ikon, though terrified, decided they had no choice. Tari, upon hearing Keo's advice, felt her heart drop. She had never expected the shaman to uncover the truth so quickly. Her fingers trembled as she clenched her sash, her mind racing. If her parents went to Niger, the sorceress might expose everything. Tari's secret would be out, and her life in Amawi would be over. That night, as the village prepared for Mafoya and Ikon's journey to Niger's hut, Tari sat in the shadows, her mind spinning. What if Niger tells them about me? What if they find out I'm the one who cursed Zina? For the first time since this began, fear began to outweigh Tari's pride. She knew she had to act fast, but what could she do? Silencing Niger was impossible, the sorceress was far too powerful. Denying her involvement wouldn't work forever, not with the shaman and Niger both suspicious. As the night deepened, Tari stared out into the darkness, her thoughts churning. She had wanted to bring Zina down, but now the weight of her actions threatened to crush her. What have I done? Cliffhanger. Tari's hands trembled as she realized she was running out of time. Her secret was a fragile thread, ready to unravel at the slightest tug. She clenched her fist, her jaw tightening. I have to find a way to stop this before it's too late. The truth revealed. The village of Amawi was abuzz with rumors as Mafoya and Ikon prepared to journey into the forbidden forest to seek out Niger. The idea of approaching the outcast sorceress filled them with dread, but their love for Zina outweighed their fear. The thought of their daughter fading away pushed them forward. Tari, however, was growing increasingly desperate. She couldn't allow her parents to meet Niger, not when the sorceress knew exactly what had transpired. That night, as Mafoya packed herbs and offerings for Niger, Tari approached her with an expression of forced concern. Mother, Tari said softly, sitting beside her. Do you really think it's wise to go to Niger? She's dangerous. What if she harms you instead of helping Zina? Mafoya paused, her hands trembling slightly as she folded a cloth. Tari, I know Niger's reputation, but what choice do we have? Zina's life is slipping away. If there's even a small chance Niger can help, we must take it. But what if it's a trap? Tari pressed, her voice rising. The elders banished her for a reason. She's not to be trusted. Ikon entered the room, his face grim. Tari, enough. We've made our decision. Zina is our priority. If Niger can save her, we must take that risk. Tari clenched her fist, panic clawing at her chest. Father, please. There must be another way. What if we consult Keo again? Maybe he can find a solution. Ikon's stern gaze silenced her. We've heard Keo's advice. If you truly care for your sister, you'll support us in this. Seeing her protest falling on deaf ears, Tari forced a tearful nod. I just don't want anything bad to happen to you, she murmured, hiding her trembling hands. The next morning, Mafoya and Ikon set off into the forest, leaving Tari behind to care for Zina. The path to Niger's hut was treacherous, winding through dense trees and eerie shadows. Every sound, every rustle of leaves, felt like a warning. Yet they pressed on, driven by the image of their daughter wasting away. When they reached Niger's hut, the sorceress was waiting for them, as if she had known they were coming. Her piercing eyes seemed to look straight through them, her presence both unsettling and commanding. "You seek answers," Niger said, her voice calm but firm. "You wish to save your daughter?" Mafoya stepped forward, holding out the offerings they had brought. "Please, Great One, tell us what has cursed our Zina. We will do anything to help her." Niger accepted the offerings with a faint smile, then gestured for them to sit. "Your daughter has been cursed by a potion, a dark magic meant to drain her vitality and leave her powerless. This spell cannot be undone by any healer or shaman." Mafoya's breath hitched. "Then how do we save her?" Niger's gaze darkened. "The only way to break the curse is for the one who cast it to undo it willingly." Ikon's fist tightened. "Do you know who did this to her?" Niger leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The answer lies close to home. The caster is someone who harbors jealousy, a heart poisoned by envy. Look within your family, for there you will find the truth." The words struck Mafoya and Ikon like lightning. They exchanged a glance, their minds racing. Close to home. Could it be? They thought of Tari's strange behavior, her insistence on avoiding Niger, and her sudden displays of affection toward Zina. Mafoya's voice trembled. "You mean, someone in our family? But why would they do this?" Niger's eyes gleamed with a mix of sadness and amusement. "Jealousy is a powerful force, my dear. It blinds reason and drives even the closest of kin to darkness."
Mafoya and Ikon returned to Amawi with heavy hearts. They didn't speak of their suspicions, but the unspoken tension between them was palpable. That evening, as they sat by Zina's bedside, they noticed Tari lingering near the doorway, her face shadowed with worry, or was it guilt? "Tari," Ikon said suddenly, his voice sharp. "Come here." Tari froze, but quickly plastered a concerned expression on her face. "Yes, father?" "Do you know anything about Zina's condition?" he asked, his piercing gaze fixed on her. Tari's heart raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Of course not. I've been doing everything I can to help her." "Why would you ask me that?" Ikon's silence stretched on, making the air thick with unease. Mafoya watched Tari closely, her motherly instincts telling her something was amiss. But instead of pressing further, they decided to wait and observe. That night, Tari paced in her room, her mind spinning with fear and anger. "Nija must have told them something," she thought. "They're watching me. They suspect me." Her hands trembled as she realized the walls were closing in. She had come too far to let everything unravel now. If her parents were already suspicious, it wouldn't be long before the truth came out. Desperation clawed at her mind, and a chilling thought took root. "I have to act before they find out. I have to eliminate Zina completely." The thought horrified her for a brief moment, but she pushed it aside. "It's the only way," she whispered to herself. "If she's gone, there'll be no one left to reveal the truth." Cliffhanger, Tari stared out into the night, her mind made up. Her next move would be her darkest yet, and this time, she intended to leave no trace behind. The failed plot. The sun hung low over the village of Amawi, casting long shadows over the narrow paths and dense forests. Zina, pale and frail, sat outside her family's hut, wrapped in a thick shawl. Though her body remained weak, her spirit had not yet faded. She watched the children playing in the distance, a faint smile touching her lips. Tari approached her with a faint expression of warmth. "Sister, you've been cooped up for too long. Let me take you for some fresh air by the riverbank. It might help you feel better." Zina looked up, surprised. Tari's sudden kindness was unexpected, but she was too exhausted to question it. "The riverbank?" she asked softly. "I'm not sure I can walk that far." I'll help you, Tari said, her voice sweet and reassuring. You'll feel better once you're there, I promise. Xena hesitated but eventually nodded. All right. Thank you, Tari. Tari offered her hand, and Xena took it, leaning heavily on her elder sister as they walked. The path to the riverbank was quiet, lined with tall trees that whispered in the breeze. Xena felt a strange unease as they ventured deeper into the woods, but she brushed it aside. Tari seemed unusually attentive, holding her arm tightly and guiding her steps. When they reached the secluded riverbank, the water shimmered under the golden light of the setting sun. The area was quiet, save for the gentle rush of the river. Tari led Xena to a large rock near the edge of the water. Sit here, Tari said, her voice unusually calm. Take in the view. Isn't it beautiful? Xena nodded, though her fatigue left her too tired to fully appreciate the scenery. Tari stood behind her, her heart pounding as she stared at the flowing river. This was her chance. If Xena were gone, everything would return to normal. Her secret would remain buried, and the villagers would no longer compare her to her younger sister. Do you hear that? Tari asked suddenly, her voice sharp. Hear what? Xena asked, confused. Tari pointed toward the water. It sounds like someone calling out. Can you check? Xena, puzzled, leaned forward to peer into the river. In that instant, Tari struck. With a sudden, forceful shove, she pushed Xena into the water. Xena let out a cry of surprise as she plunged into the cold river. Panic seized her as she struggled to keep her head above the water. She flailed her arms, but her weakened body made it impossible to stay afloat. The current began to drag her downstream, and her cries for help grew fainter. Tari stood frozen on the bank, her chest heaving. For a moment, she felt triumphant. It's done, she thought. No one will ever know. But fate had other plans. A short distance away, a wandering hunter named Oba was returning from his day's work. Tall and strong, with a sharp eye and a kind heart, Oba had spent years traveling through the forests and rivers near Amui. As he approached the riverbank, he heard the faint sound of splashing and a voice crying out for help. Oba rushed toward the sound and spotted Xena, her head barely above water, being carried away by the current. Without hesitation, he dropped his belongings and dove into the river. The cold water bit at his skin, but he pushed forward, his powerful strokes cutting through the current. Xena's strength was failing fast, and her body sank beneath the surface. Just as she lost consciousness, Oba reached her and pulled her to safety. He carried her limp form to the shore, where he gently laid her down and checked for signs of life. Stay with me, he muttered as he pressed on her chest, forcing water from her lungs. Xena coughed violently, her eyes fluttering open as she gasped for air. You're safe now, Oba said gently, wrapping his cloak around her. What happened? Xena's voice was faint, but her words were clear. Tari, she pushed me. Oba's brows furrowed as he looked back toward the riverbank. In the distance, he spotted a figure running away. Though he couldn't see her face, the figure's hurried movements and resemblance to Xena left little doubt in his mind. Oba carried Xena back to the village, his expression dark with anger. When they arrived, the villagers gasped at the sight of Xena, soaked and trembling but alive. Mafoya and Ikon rushed forward, their relief quickly replaced by confusion and concern when Xena whispered what had happened. Tari, Xena repeated, her voice trembling. She pushed me into the river. The villagers turned to Tari, who stood near the back of the crowd, her face pale. That's not true, she cried, her voice rising in panic. I don't know what she's talking about. I wasn't even there. Oba stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. I saw someone running away from the riverbank. She looked just like you. Tari's heart sank, her mind scrambling for an explanation. It wasn't me. You must be mistaken. I would never hurt my sister. The villagers murmured among themselves, their suspicion growing. Mafoya and Ikon exchanged troubled glances, their doubts about Tari now impossible to ignore. Cliffhanger, As the villagers began to close in, demanding answers, Tari's mind raced. She had to think quickly, or everything she had worked for would come crashing down. How far was she willing to go to protect her secret? Tari's judgment. The sun rose over Amui, casting a golden glow on the village as its people gathered in the central square. Whispers filled the air as the elders prepared to convene. Xena, still weak but determined, sat on a mat at the edge of the gathering, her parents beside her. Tari stood at the center, surrounded by watchful villagers, her face pale and her heart pounding. The events of the previous day had spread like wildfire. Xena's near drowning and Oba's testimony had left little room for doubt, but the village elders believed in justice. Tari would be given a chance to explain herself, though the weight of suspicion hung heavy over her. Elder Amadi, the oldest and wisest among them, raised his staff to quiet the murmurs. "Today, we gather to uncover the truth," he said, his deep voice echoing across the square. "The accusations against Tari are grave. If true, they betray not only her sister but the trust of this village." Tari swallowed hard, her eyes darting to her parents, who watched her with a mix of heartbreak and disbelief. "Elder Amadi, I didn't do anything," she cried, her voice trembling. "This is all a misunderstanding." Before Amadi could respond, a ripple of movement passed through the crowd. The villagers turned as a figure emerged from the forest. It was Nija, the outcast sorceress, her staff tapping rhythmically against the ground. Her arrival sent shivers through the villagers, who instinctively stepped back to let her through. Nija's piercing gaze swept over the crowd before landing on Tari. "I was summoned," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "And it seems I've come just in time." The elders approached Nija, explaining the situation and seeking her counsel. Nija listened silently, her expression unreadable. When they finished, she stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Tari. "You still deny your actions, child?" Nija asked, her tone sharp. I didn't do anything." Tari stammered, her voice breaking. "I swear." Nija's lips curled into a faint, knowing smile. "Lies will not serve you here." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a small, shimmering charm shaped like a crescent moon. "This is a truth charm. Once placed, it will compel you to speak only the truth." The crowd gasped, and Tari's knees wobbled. She opened her mouth to protest, but Nija raised a hand, silencing her. "If you are innocent, you have nothing to fear." Tari's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but there was none. Two elders stepped forward and held her arms as Nija placed the charm around her neck. The moment it touched her skin, a wave of heat surged through her body, and her heart raced uncontrollably. "Now," Nija said, her voice quiet but firm, "tell us what you did to your sister." Tari tried to resist, clamping her lips shut, but the magic was too strong. Words began to spill from her mouth, unbidden and unstoppable. I went to Nija and asked for a potion to make Xena weak. I was jealous of her, of how everyone loved her more than me. I just wanted her to fail, to lose what she had. I never thought it would go this far." The crowd erupted into shocked murmurs, and Tari's parents stared at her in disbelief, tears streaming down Mafoya's face. Xena, too stunned to speak, clutched her shawl tightly as she listened to her sister's confession. Elder Amadi raised his staff again, silencing the villagers. His voice was heavy with anger. "Tari, you have committed an unforgivable act, driven by envy and hatred. Your actions have endangered not only your sister but the harmony of this village. For this, you shall be banished from Amui." Tari's legs buckled, and she fell to her knees. "No. Please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean for this to happen. Please don't send me away." The elders remained firm. "Your actions have consequences," Amadi said. "You must leave by sunrise tomorrow. You will no longer call Amui your home." Nija stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "The punishment is just, but there is still the matter of Xena. Her condition has not yet been resolved." The villagers turned to Nija, their faces hopeful. "Can you save her?" Mafoya asked, her voice trembling. Naija nodded slowly. I can. But the process will be painful, and it requires Xena's willingness to forgive Tari. Without forgiveness, the curse cannot be fully broken. All eyes turned to Xena. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came out. Her heart was torn. How could she forgive the sister who had caused her so much suffering, who had tried to end her life? Yet, as she looked at Tari, broken, sobbing, and filled with regret, another emotion stirred within her. Was this truly the sister she had grown up with? Was there still a chance for redemption? Xena closed her eyes, her mind swirling with memories, both good and bad. The decision before her was one that could change everything. Cliffhanger, Xena opened her eyes, her gaze locking on Tari. The crowd held its breath, waiting for her answer. She began, her voice trembling with emotion, redemption and renewal. The air was heavy with anticipation as Xena stood before the village, her frail form trembling. All eyes were on her, waiting for her decision. Tari knelt on the ground, her head bowed and tears streaming down her face. The truth had been revealed, and the judgment had been made, but the final piece of the puzzle rested in Xena's hands. Xena closed her eyes, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. Tari's betrayal had caused her immense pain, both physical and emotional. But as she stood there, Xena thought of their childhood, the moments of laughter, the shared secrets, the bond that once connected them. Could she let go of the anger and choose a different path? Finally, she opened her eyes, her gaze steady. I forgive you, Tari, she said, her voice soft but resolute. Not because it is easy, but because I cannot carry this burden in my heart forever. The villagers gasped, and Mafoya began to cry openly, clutching Ikon's arm. Tari looked up, her face streaked with tears. Xena. I'm so sorry, she choked out. I was blind with jealousy, and I let it consume me. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but, thank you. Naija stepped forward, her expression unreadable. Your choice has power, Xena, she said. Forgiveness is not a weakness, it is a strength few possess. Now, let us begin. The sorceress raised her staff and began to chant in a low, melodic voice. The villagers watched in awe as a soft glow surrounded Xena. The air around her seemed to hum with energy, and for a moment, the pain etched on her face vanished. The curse, weakened by Xena's forgiveness, began to lift. Xena gasped as warmth spread through her body, filling her with strength she hadn't felt in weeks. Her color returned, her eyes brightened, and she stood tall, free of the weight that had bound her. It is done, Naija declared, lowering her staff. She turned to Tari, her tone sharp but not unkind. Your sister's forgiveness has saved her, but your path is still your own to walk. Use this chance wisely. The next morning, as the sun rose over Amawi, Tari prepared to leave the village. The elders had upheld their judgment, and she was to be banished for her actions. Her parents embraced her one last time, tears in their eyes but hope in their hearts. I will make this right, Tari promised. One day, I'll return, not as the person I was, but as someone worthy of standing among you again. Before leaving, Tari knelt before Xena. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You've given me a chance I didn't deserve. I'll spend the rest of my life making amends. Xena looked at her sister, a small, sad smile on her lips. Be safe, Tari. I'll always hope for your happiness. With those words, Tari turned and walked into the horizon, her silhouette fading into the distance. As the day of the Festival of Blessings arrived, the village was alive with celebration. Xena, now fully recovered, stood proudly as the festival's guardian. Dressed in flowing robes adorned with beads and feathers, she led the sacred rituals with grace and strength. The festival brought prosperity to Amawi, the fields blossoming with abundance and the rivers flowing crystal clear. The villagers hailed Xena as a beacon of hope and resilience, her story becoming a tale passed down through generations as a reminder of the power of forgiveness and the dangers of envy. Far away, in a quiet village beyond the mountains, Tari began a new chapter of her life. She worked tirelessly to help those in need, using her skills to heal and guide others. Though the pain of her mistakes lingered, she found solace in her acts of kindness. Slowly, she began to rebuild her sense of self, knowing she could never undo the past, but could strive to create a better future. One evening, back in Amui, Xena stood beneath the village's sacred tree. The golden light of the setting sun filtered through its branches, casting a warm glow over her. She closed her eyes and let the gentle breeze brush against her face, her heart filled with peace. As she stood there, a single thought echoed in her mind. I hope you found your path, Tari. Wherever you are, I hope you found happiness. The story of Xena and Tari became a cherished folktale in Amui, a tale of betrayal, forgiveness, and the enduring bond of family. The end.